So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, Keith Thurman has called out Terence Crawford in a fight that I like. I think this would be a great fight. Keith Thurman's been on the shelf. He hasn't fought since Manny Pacquiao. We don't know what's going on with his career. It's July now, and we know that he fought Manny Pacquiao in August, I believe. So it's almost going to be 2 years out the ring. Whenever he comes back, it's going to be well over 2 years. Keith Thurman's career is sliding and sliding fast. And what I mean by that is this is a guy that, at one point in his career was seen as the number one welterweight in the world. Everybody was chasing him. He was the king of the pack. He was the king of the pack. He was a unified welterweight champion, and it looked like he had the world at his oyster. He had the world at his feet, and it looked like Thurman was going to be a serious player in boxing. People were talking about him being pound for pound, and he was undefeated, and then all of a sudden, boom, he fought Danny Garcia, and that's it. He went missing. Keith Thurman was brilliant, but it was only a short period of time. Keith Thurman didn't have long at the top, and you could probably say injury killed him, in the sense that injury didn't allow him to get, in my opinion, reach his full potential. And I actually think that it's now Keith Thurman's on the slide. He's on the slide. He's been very inactive. Very inactive. You'd say in the last, since, the Danny Garcia fight, which was 2017, I believe, for the last 4 years, he's been so inactive. Who's he really fought? He's fought Josecito Lopez. He's fought Manny Pacquiao. And that's in the last 4 years. Because remember, after the Danny Garcia fight, he went missing for around 2 years. Then he fought Lopez. Then he fought Pacquiao. Now he's gone missing again for 2 years. So Keith Thurman has, for me, was very, very talented, very, very good. He had punching power, he had good boxing ability, good movement. He was always vulnerable to the body and vulnerable, I think, his chin. I think he was a bit vulnerable. And that him being a big welterweight, this is why I say that someone like Keith Thurman is a welterweight. I don't think he can move up weight because of those vulnerabilities that he's got. I think he would get knocked out at the higher weights. So I think, he won't be able to compete at 154 just because of the vulnerability he's got. But I do think as a welterweight, this guy had everything. He had everything, apart from, you would say durability wasn't his. Even when I say durability, he was tough enough. He was tough against Manny Pacquiao. He showed a lot of heart. Lopez, he showed heart. But he could get hurt. But unfortunately, with Keith Thurman, the inactivity, the injury, just for me, stopped his career at the highest level. I think he could have become even greater, and I think he could have beaten guys like Spence. I would have always favored Spence in that fight, but I think there was a time where if Thurman had fought Spence, that would have been seen as a 50-50 fight. Now, you look at that fight, and Spence has already said that he's not interested in fighting Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman now is in a position where he's in the Who Needs Me club. Nobody really needs Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman's career is kind of on the slide. Nobody's really talking about him. He's inactive himself. So really, where does Keith Thurman go from here? Keith Thurman initially wasn't mentioning Terence Crawford's name, when he was champion, when he was talking about fighting Pacquiao and stuff. Now, he knows he isn't going to get the rematch with Manny Pacquiao. Errol Spence isn't interested in Errol Spence is fighting Manny Pacquiao. Now, there was talk about him fighting Sean Porter and him being in negotiations with Sean Porter. I don't know what's happened there. I don't know what's happened with him and Sean Porter. But for me, a logical fight is Keith Thurman v Terence Crawford. And I'll tell you why. Terence Crawford needs a top welterweight on his record, and Keith Thurman is that. People still regard him as a top welterweight, even though I think it's very questionable now. We don't know what Keith Thurman we're going to get in the ring. And I know a lot of people talk about the Pacquiao fight. The fact is, Manny Pacquiao was also old and past his best, and yet Manny Pacquiao still beat him. And Thurman was seen as a guy that should win that fight. But yet he got dropped. He got hurt in the fight. And the fight before, he looked terrible as well against Lopez. So really, when you think about it, Thurman hasn't looked that good. Let's be real. He came back. He didn't look great against Manny Pacquiao in a fight that most were expecting him to win. And he didn't look great against Lopez. Let's be real. He didn't look great. So, and now he's been out the ring for another 2 years. So we're talking about a guy that's seriously on the slide. We're talking about a guy that's you know, it's going to be kind of harsh saying this, but I don't know whether Crawford would get the credit for beating someone like Thurman now. Would Crawford get credit for beating Thurman? This is why Crawford's in a bit of a difficult spot, because if he fights someone like Keith Thurman and he beats up Keith Thurman, everyone on the scale, oh, Keith Thurman was shot. So this is why I think someone like Keith Thurman, as good as Keith Thurman was, I don't know whether Terence Crawford gets credit. Now, people will say before the fight, Keith Thurman can win the fight. But if Terence Crawford goes in there and completely destroys Keith Thurman, people are going to say, well, oh, Thurman was shot anyway. We know that he was inactive. He hadn't fought for 2 years. He got beat. He had a loss against Manny Pacquiao. But at the end of the day, I still think it's more credible than anything Terence Crawford can fight right now. And probably more credible than some of the names that he's fought recently. So that's a fight that I would embrace, and I'm pretty sure a lot of boxing fans would. I think Thurman has a chance. I just think Terence Crawford's too fresh, too good for him at this point, and I think he'd be too fast. I think he'll be too powerful as well. I'm not sure Keith Thurman has what it takes now. In his prime, I might even edge towards Keith. Actually, I don't know. It would have been a 50-50. One that, you may have even said Thurman being the bigger welterweight, being sharp, mobile, fast, puncher. You could even say Thurman would win that fight. Right now, yeah, Thurman's might be a shell of himself. Thurman may be completely finished. Remember, inactivity is a killer. Inactivity kills you. And then inactivity when a guy's been injured as well. Like Keith Thurman was, after the Garcia fight, had injury. That's why he was out for 2 years. He wasn't out for 2 years by choice. He was out because he had injury. So this is what I'm trying to say. That Keith Thurman's career now is on the backward slide. And him being inactive is not good for any fighter. Inactivity is not good for any fighter. The fact that we're not even hearing about him getting in the ring anytime soon, it's a problem. And him going into a ring with someone like Sean Porter, who has been active, who has been fighting over the years, someone like Terence Crawford, although he's not been as active as I would like him to be, and many fans would like him to be, he's still been relatively active. And one thing we know about Terence Crawford, he's a gym rat and he stays in the gym. I'm not sure that's the same with Keith Thurman. Even Keith Thurman, I saw him on the bag the other day when he was being interviewed, and he looked kind of heavy to me. He looked kind of overweight. So I don't know whether Keith Thurman has been in the gym, has been keeping his tools sharp. I don't know. So we may get a completely shot Keith Thurman when we see him next, because like I said, when we saw him against Josecito Lopez, he looked terrible. He looked terrible. And that, remember, was seen as a warm-up fight that almost went wrong. Then he got beat by Manny Pacquiao. And now I don't think he's going to have a tune-up fight. I think he's going to go into a big fight. So really, whoever he fights, I would have Keith Thurman as an underdog. If he fights Porter, I actually think Porter wins that rematch. If he fights Terence Crawford, I actually think Terence Crawford would stop him. And I think Porter would probably stop him. I just don't think Keith Thurman has what it takes anymore to compete against these guys. I know there'll be certain guys out there saying he beats Terence Crawford. Nah, not for me. I just think Crawford would be too much for him. Crawford would be too sharp, too strong. And I'm not sure Keith Thurman has what it takes anymore. And to be honest, the weakness of Keith Thurman, even in his prime, was quite clear to see. His body, hit him to the body. Terence Crawford can goes very well to the body. He's spiteful with those body shots. And I'm not sure Keith Thurman will be able to absorb those body shots from Terence Crawford. And even Porter, for example. I think Porter would be too relentless. I think the pace that he'd set would be too much. And one thing Keith Thurman struggled with is when he went up to that top level, they call him Keith One-Time Thurman, but all of a sudden his power wasn't Keith One-Time Thurman power. It was a guy that had good power, but wasn't able to get the top guys out of there. And those guys might be too active, too fresh for him now. And Thurman always had that vulnerability, which we saw throughout his career. So personally, I think Terence Crawford beats him. I think Terence Crawford probably stops him, if I'm honest. That's just my take. I think Crawford would stop him. I don't know what you guys think, but I personally think Terence Crawford would stop Keith Thurman right now. I do believe so. I do believe that he would stop him. That's just my honest opinion. I think Terence Crawford would stop Keith Thurman. I think he'd knock him out. In his prime, I think Keith Thurman could have stopped Terence Crawford. I think that would have been seen as a 50-50 fight, where I think Terence Crawford would probably had to box a very smart fight and walk a tightrope, because Thurman was a bigger welterweight. He was a much bigger welterweight, and he was sharp. He was fast. He had power. Not huge power, but Crawford's a smaller man, remember, and he's been hurt by Kavalauskas. He's been hurt by guys, and Thurman had the kind of power to wipe you out. Maybe not against the big welterweights, but against a smaller guy, I think Thurman could have really done some damage. You know, Thurman had pop, but it wasn't the kind of pop that people made him out like the one time. No, he had respectable power and dangerous power where he could hurt you. But he also had very good. I think what made Thurman very good, he was very fast, very explosive, and he had very good feet. He used to move well, so he wasn't just. So when he fought Danny Garcia, I think Teddy Atlas summed it up beautifully that Thurman may be a bigger puncher in this fight, and Thurman may be the better boxer and the bigger man, and the better feet. And that's why I think Thurman, and even then the fight was very close, because I think Thurman, although Thurman would start well and Thurman was a good boxer, I think later on in the fight Thurman would wear down a little. Thurman would get tired, and I think the other fighter would get into the fight. And I think we saw that early on when Thurman fought Lopez. We saw that when Thurman fought Porter, and the Garcia fight. Thurman started off well, but as the rounds went on, Thurman started to become more vulnerable as the rounds went on, and the other guy got him, because Thurman, that's what I said, his movement, his speed, his power early on would show, but later on in the fight, he became a bit more vulnerable, and we saw that in the Porter fight where Porter became strong later on. Danny Garcia became strong later on. Josecito Lopez became strong later on. If I'm not mistaken, Thurman dropped Lopez in the second round. But this is what I mean with someone like Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford he works you out. So although Thurman may start off well against Crawford, Crawford will ride out the wave, and he'll wait for his opportunity. Mayweather was brilliant at doing that. And Crawford, they kind of wait for you to weaken, and then eventually when they see you're starting to weaken, that's when they pounce. And I think Crawford would do that to Thurman. He'd wait for him to weaken. He'd wait, when's the right time, and I'll get him. And that's what he'll do. And who knows, right now, he might just take Thurman out early. Who knows? Because Thurman is so inactive. And it's kind of a waste, really, because I think Thurman could have been a top pound-for-pound fighter. I think he had that kind of ability. Now, there was always a chink in his armor, like I said, the vulnerability. But he definitely had a serious ability. He had good explosive punching power. He had good movement. And he had good boxing brain. I believe Thurman had a very good boxing brain. He had good movement, good speed, good punching power. He was complete in all areas. Like I said, the only thing you can question is his durability a little, but he was complete. And he, for me, had the ability of being a top pound-for-pound fighter. Unfortunately, inactivity, injury, stopped Keith Thurman reaching his full potential. Otherwise, we could have seen a top pound-for-pound fighter in Keith Thurman. Which is unfortunate, really, because really, if you look at it, his stay at the top was very short stayed, really, when you think about it. What was his peak? When he fought Porter and Danny Garcia? That's it. We hardly saw him. Like, he fought Manny Pacquiao but lost that fight. Lopez, what was his real big fights? What was his real big wins? His resumes: Guerrero, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter. That's it, really. We never got him to see him against Brook. We never got to see him against Khan. We never got to see him against Errol Spence. We may see him against... We never, in his prime, we never got to see him against anybody, really. Only two fights, really. Like, Guerrero was okay, but he was kind of on the slide when Thurman fought him. So, really, he only really fought Danny Garcia and Sean Porter. Really, they were his marquee wins. Apart from that, Thurman, there's not a whole heap of other wins that you can look at and think, wow, look at that resume. Unfortunately for Keith Thurman, I think injury cut his career kind of short and cut him from reaching his potential. But who knows? A fight with Terence Crawford, if he manages to pull it off, which I doubt it, if he manages to pull it off, his career's back on track. That's why he needs a fight like this. I think the Porter fight doesn't do much for him because he's already beaten Porter, and Porter's not a champion. For me, that's a backward step in a fight that I would actually pick against him. I think Porter wins. So actually, that would really end his career in a way. So personally, I think a fight with Terence Crawford probably makes more sense, because if he loses to him, you can say he lost to a pound for pound. He can take a step down and then maybe fight a Porter. Loses to Porter, his career's basically finished. So yeah, that's my take. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you want to see Keith Thurman against Terence Crawford? Would you think Terence Crawford would stop Keith Thurman, or could Keith Thurman cause the upset? Leave your thoughts, guys. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.